Well, it's always a delight to have our next guest because, well, you never know what he's going to say, so you just kind of roll with it. Our special guest is Dr. Marshal Foster. He heads up the World History Institute. Of course, he's a friend of the Rogue Valley. He's been in and out of the area speaking a lot, used to live here. Maybe we'll get him back, I don't know. But today we're Skyping him in from his office. Hello, Marshal. How you doing, buddy?
Hi, Perry. It's so good to be with you.
Hey, I miss your hat, man. I like that little beanie hat you wear.
Oh, I know. I wear that everywhere. Why don't I have it on right now? I'm sorry, I don't have it. I'll find one quick during the break.
Just get that lampshade behind you. That'll work.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Hey, nice to see you, my friend, and happy Thanksgiving to you. I want to get into a little bit of a Thanksgiving history, but give me your take on the election. What do you think happened?
Well, I think happened what we really, if we were honest to ourselves, it was destined to be, and that is that America's become more and more socialistic, and over a period of these, especially the last 4 years, it has come home to roost that the people of America want the goodies, and this is exactly what happened to England in the 1890s, and it destroyed the English Empire. It's the same thing that happened to Rome over a period of a couple of hundred years, and they literally, their currency was destroyed, their people stopped working, and they lived off of bread snacks that were given off of trucks, and they went and watched gladiatorial contests, and all of Rome died, and the barbarians came in and ate them alive while they sat in their beds of sin. So, that's the nature of man. The nature of man is if you give something for nothing, if you break the biblical pattern of biblical economics, which was the pattern that our forefathers and our founding fathers used, local self-government, protection against the evil of large government because men are sinful. You can't trust them at a national scale. You can barely trust them at the local scale. Once you lose a view of the sin nature of man, the sovereignty of God, and the priesthood of all believers, those great three theological doctrines were the foundation of America's liberty. That has been dying in America for about 100 years. And once the American people finally lost that memory, they have a new memory. The new memory is that there is a new dog in town that feeds them. And every day a truck comes by and feeds them with money. It's called the Obama stash. You remember that lady?
Right.
Who said, yeah, I want to get some of Obama's stash. And the guy said, well, where does he get it? And he said, I don't care where he gets it. I'm just going to get some of it. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we've got is that mentality. But in the long term, it's probably a very good thing. And I think it is. I was speaking at a huge conference back in Georgia at this small town all during the week. And on Wednesday night and Thursday night were the best nights because everybody was in total depression. And so it was perfect time for my message, which is that we need to awaken the army of compassion. And that really the way in which America is going to be restored is from the family up, from the city up, and from the church up, and that we need to be living the life and reaching out to people of all kinds. And as we do from the local up, then we can see a transformation. It's not going to happen from the White House with a Jesus Saves neon sign.
All right. Now, there's no doubt about it. We have been involved in an ideological shift in this country, and it showed up big time 2 weeks ago. And what's so interesting to me is, Marshal, and you perhaps have seen some of the exit numbers like we have, upwards of 6 million self-proclaimed evangelicals voted for Obama. Now, I guess the question is, in our religious experience, something else has happened. Are we just a bunch of ignorant Christians walking around? I mean, have we cut and paste the Bible to say what we want it to say, and the things we don't like we just throw out?
Well, Perry, it's really what has happened is if you take the truth and you water it down enough, it doesn't taste like the truth. And what has happened with the social gospel, beginning in about 1879, when it began in England with the Fabian Society, it moved to America under the term social gospel. It's transmuted now into social justice, but it's really a liberation theology which that's crept into the Christian colleges of America. It's crept into the Christian mindset through just watching secular television, which is what most Christians do. And what they have been taught is this false view of socialism and communism. It's a lie that was perpetrated from the 1870s because the communists including Marx and Engels, realized they couldn't take Western civilization until they destroyed Christianity. And by the way, that's their goal. Their goal is prison camps, death, destruction of religious liberty, and the end of America as we know it. That's the goal of communism, okay? Now, that's all been hidden now under a new guise. And the new guise is social justice, we care for the poor, we care for the needy, and that the new Jesus in town is the government. The government has to be like Jesus in that the government now is going to take care of the poor. When there's a disaster, the government comes to the aid of those people. When there's a problem with your retirement, the government comes to your aid. And if you're sick, the government's going to take care of you. So who is your God? Your God becomes the government. That is what Rome did. That's what England did. That's what every other nation before us has followed the same pattern. There's really only two gods of this earth, aren't there? There's the true God, and then there's the false God, Satan, who masquerades as an angel of light. And that's exactly what we have, is this masquerade has fooled the Christian community. Much of it not knowing anything, going to progressive public schools, learning a socialist economic theory that they think is devoid or divested of its theological implications. In other words, it doesn't matter whether you're a socialist or whether you are a free enterpriser. It's all a matter of your economic theory. And one seems to be better for the poor people. So I'm going to go for the poor people, right?
Wow. All right. So it appears now, I just had Kate Obenshine on, and she wrote the book Divider in Chief, and how the president and his party has successfully divided us up into camps and pitted us against one another. And part of that is the Christians and the people of faith. And as you're watching today, like I am, Israel is now under attack, and our president has found nowhere to its defense. This just uncorks a lot of things. If we stay on the path that you've described, and apparently we are there, right. It appears to me that if they get this microphone, this Christian broadcasting microphone, then the next attempt will be to silence the pulpit through political correctness or hate speech.
Yes, and the end of the nonprofit organization. Now, by the way, they're negotiating that right now quietly in Congress, the end of deductions. And you know, when they talk about a $50,000 max on deductions for people with $250,000 or more, what they're doing is they're going to move right down and do away with the deductions for charity. What they're attempting to do with that is simply to eliminate the competition of the church, so that the people will stop giving to the church and continue to just give more taxes to the government, because the tax to the government is like a tithe. We take care of the people, right? Mm-hmm. Why do you need the church? And so that's what's happening in terms of the secular humanists. That's what they're attempting to do. Now, there's a lot of people in Congress that are fighting back on that one. We'll see where that goes, but that's where it's headed if we don't stand up. And it's time for Christians to wake up and to stand up. But it's not just a partisan fight between Republican and Democrat. As you and I have said through the years, it's really an idea fight. It's a battle for the minds of men. And the minds of the Christians as well as the non-Christian have been brainwashed by a media that has overwhelmed our seminars. Let's just get down to it. Yeah. You and I have been attempting for 30 years, and I've known you for almost 30 years. We've been attempting to reach the Christian community with the biblical principles of self and civil government, with the principles of America's Christian heritage. And we have reached millions of people, but only perhaps a few million compared to the 150, 200 million that they have been able to take under their wing because of all of the media that they control. So, you know, it has been an upward slog, but a better day is coming, Perry. I'll talk to you about that in a minute.
Would you, I've been trying in my mind, Marshall, to figure out how to describe what happened, and it appears that the conservative ideology in America, which would include, you know, the Christian biblical perspective, experienced a spiritual Pearl Harbor 2 weeks ago, Tuesday. It was a surprise attack. It got us. It sunk a lot of things. The good news is America rallied after that, and the troops came together. People lied to go out and protect their country and turned around and built the greatest nation on earth. Do you think that can happen again?
Oh, yes. It is always at times of great despair. In fact, God brings those times of despair on his church when we're not listening. As we know, just read Amos or read any of the great prophets. And we see that judgment does have to come because there are consequences of sin. But God is gracious, and so he listens to the cries of his people. And just like Spurgeon, I was mentioning that Spurgeon in England back in the 1880s, he exposed the fact that socialism was taking over the church and liberalism was taking over England. And he said, I would not have you exchange the gold of individual Christianity for the base metal of Christian socialism. And England was rampantly moving toward Christian socialism and away from the gospel, and it was being destroyed. And he went on to say, though, and this is good for us to remember, and this is my hope. He said this, he said, if socialism does take over, he says, listen to this, but rest assured, be certain that the Lord is about to do a marvelous thing in the earth, and that he will lift up once again the stone which the builders have again refused, and cause it to become more than ever the headstone of the corner. Never dream of defeat. Be calm amid all the din of controversy, for the hand which holds the gospel must win the victory. This is the Lord's doing, and we shall see it. So his perspective was that victory comes through the trial and the turmoil of our failures, and then our repentance, as Jesus said in Revelation 2:5, remember from whence thou hast fallen, repent and do the deeds you did at first. The church can't really repent and do the first things that we did in building the greatest Christian country in the history of the world until we remember how far we've fallen. And I think this last election shows us going over the political cliff before we went over the fiscal cliff, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
We're over that cliff now.
The 4 cycles that Israel went through, and a lot of this history that you have conveyed, is the covenant, the blessing, the rejection, and the crying out. We watched, the world watched, this administration and the party that supports them stand up and boo God down 3 times. And each time those boos got louder and louder. So we have openly rejected God in this country. Are we moving to the crying out stage?
I think so. I think we're beginning to. And I think this is where the church has to be the beginner here. It's not going to happen in the secular world. The socialists are well entrenched in there. It's a religion. The religion of man is dominating America right now, not because it's more powerful or even controls more people, but because it's more committed. The Christian community must be committed unto death to the strategy of God and the person of Jesus Christ. And that means a real commitment to Christ. What we need probably in America are fewer Christians, but real Christians. And those real Christians then will make the difference. John Knox converted Scotland in 10 years against all odds with one man. He had nothing else. I could give you example after example of throughout history, it's small groups, including in early America, who then rose up at times of despair, like the Great Awakening, and led the people back. So the people are going to be ready. They're not quite there yet because they're still using their credit cards. Wait till their credit cards bounce sometime probably next year and things go really into the toilet. At that point, if that happens, that will be the sign that are we going to listen in the midst of economic despair? Because I think that's probably what's coming.
Okay. Now, it appears to me we all say, well, we want to be like Christ, but being like Christ does call for suffering and does call for death. Are we prepared for that?
Well, I think it needs to be, we have to look realistic. It's incremental. Not any of us is going to have to do everything. But what we can do is in our personal lives, take where we live and walk with Christ. Take care of our own children. Train them up. That's the number one purpose of a man and a woman, is to train their children. If they haven't done that, they've failed. Secondly, we need to train our church and prepare our church with the truth and say, are you? I'm willing to stand. Are you? I'm giving up my retirement. I'm a baby boomer. There's no retirement for me, right? There's no retirement for you. Perry, you're going to go till you croak. And I am too. Why? Because we know that our children's lives are at stake. Just like it says in Psalm 145, that one generation shall praise you to the next generation, shall tell your mighty deeds. That's what we need to be doing. So we need to be about that process. It just takes us doing where we are, step by step. It's not going to be just, one guy fully committed and then, everybody else mediocre. No, it's us taking our place. I call it the Army of Compassion. In fact, that's the new seminar that I'm giving around the country, which I started in Georgia on election week, is called Unleashing the Army of Compassion. And I'll send you a copy of it on CD. And we're developing it with Kirk Cameron, and we're going to be taking it throughout the country. And it's a concept of the Army of Compassion is what took the Roman Empire, and it is the body of Christ reaching out to everybody. We'll break this whole idea of the class structure between Latinos and the black community and the white community. All of that goes down the drain when we start caring for the poor, caring for the needy, adopting the children we haven't adopted, and opening up our empty homes to people that are truly in need, taking care of the local community level. How about the prisoners? Are we visiting the prisoners? How about the widows and the orphans? Are we caring for them? If we're doing that in our local community, we can cut back on government at the local level. And as we do that, then we can say at the county level, cut back on government services. Then we can go to the state and say, we don't need you anymore, please. We don't want your help. And it will spread from city to city when the church does what it did for 300 years in America. We were the social welfare net of America. And in light of our coming distress, everybody is going to be looking for an answer. And the church can be literally the salve, the bond of Gilead that can tie America together again in the love of Christ if we are willing to be fully committed to Him and doing what He said. What is true religion according to James? Visiting widows and orphans in their distress and living unstained before the world.
You know, that message is the message that the Republican Party is wrestling with. Have they become too hard with their stance? Even though their stance may have been the true stance, it didn't show compassion. And before we abdicate our responsibility, say, well, that's a Republican issue, I'm so glad to hear you say what you're saying, because I believe it is a church issue. It is a Christian issue. We need to take back the services and put it back clearly at the foot of the church.
Absolutely. And this is something we've not had to deal with because the government was doing it. Those days are over. The government is bankrupt. We're never going to be able to pay those $120 trillion in unfunded liabilities that we've promised the next generation. The church will step up, and I believe it will, Perry. And you and I will get together, and I want to strategize with you. I'm working with city after city now, and I would like to work with Medford. And this is just a local strategy. This isn't an organization. This is everybody doing what God's called them to do. But I'm seeing it in Pine Mountain, Georgia, Douglas County, Colorado, Medford, Oregon. Why not? This is the place where you guys are already doing it. And then Ventura, we're working on Ventura County now with Kirk Cameron and developing a strategy with all the churches to go into the prisons. One of the churches has already bought a hotel and set it up for women, unwed mothers, and are taking in the unwed mothers of our county. We need to be doing that on a countywide basis with all the churches in every place we live. And we begin to take over those social services and get ready for what's going to come, and that is a breakdown of the society in which people are going to be crying out for help. And that's where the church transformed the Roman Empire, because they had love for the people, even in the midst of the chaos of Rome's collapse.
All right, so are you calling for a revival of compassion instead of a revival of just making people feel good?
Absolutely, absolutely. And compassion is commitment, isn't it, Perry?
Yeah.
See, it's because compassion is a selflessness that only comes from Christ. It's not in us to be compassionate. It's much easier to sit in front of the flat screen and watch 18 football games. It's much easier to hang out with our friends, but it's very difficult to pay the price for the people that are in pain and to bring those people in. I was at our place, and the couple that brought me in very much impressed me. I just got to know them on a cruise I was on about 6 weeks ago. They brought me into this little place, LaGrange, Georgia, and they have been doing it for 4 years. They've been taking in prisoners who are on release into their 12 businesses that they own there, and they've been taking them in, and they've been training them and converting them to Christ. One of them is their baker in their restaurant. Another 3 or 4 of them work as salesmen in their car dealerships. I mean, they've been converted, they've transformed them, and they've taken tremendous risk by taking them into their house. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is the kind of compassion that you just don't see very often, and they're just doing it. They've been doing it. Nobody told them to do it. They just reached out. These are just laymen who've been doing it. And that's an example to everybody else in the room. As I was in the seminar, wow. And the pastors that were there said, wow, we should be doing that. How many of us as baby boomers our kids are gone? We have the opportunity to help starting in our own church, the tremendous needs of the single ladies that are there and the people that are around us, and then reaching out beyond that and organizing a strategy for the whole city. So it's going to be exciting. I'm not just saying it's not just an external thing. It is the preaching of the gospel that will save the country. That's number one. But the preaching of the gospel without the love of Christ seen and caring for the needy is hypocrisy.
Marshal, you're a delight. Thank you, my friend. We love you. And people want to get a copy of Monumental. If you didn't see it in the theaters, let me tell you, get a copy of this. Go to worldhistoryinstitute.org. Quickly, 30 seconds, you pretty much deal with that monument there. Tell us about it quickly.
Well, this is monumental. It's the untold story of the search for America's national treasure. Kirk Cameron goes on this search. I help him along the way, along with other historians and people. But we go back and we discover the national treasure, which is this the understanding of how the greatest Christian nation in the world was ever known was built. And it's on top of a hilltop, and it's a 180-ton monument called the Forefathers Monument. And it outlines for us the magic strategy or the secret sauce that made America great. And he goes back to the end of the movie. He challenges all of America to get out of their chairs, and he says that your Reformation begins in your house, not in the White House.
All right, thank you, my friend. I've been to that monument twice. Last time I was there, it was pouring down rain, but I spent 2 hours walking around it. Loved it. Hey, love you, brother. Best to you and your family for Thanksgiving, and we'll get you up here again soon.
Soon, I hope.
All right, God bless you. Marshal Foster
you,
with
brother.
us today. Thank you. worldhistoryinstitute.org. Go there and check it out.